poorest congressional district in the country, and naming the South Bronx has had this real negative connotation all over it for the last 40 or 50 years. And I think it has been done by design, and it's really sad. So if we can have the first slide. You know, some of the things that Bettina and Alicia have talked about in terms of the IEA and the EDC, and what I want to talk to you today about is what some of the effects of these subsidies, and when they say they want to move out to the outlying boroughs and supposedly create jobs, or are they really having, is it a way of them making money for themselves? It seems as we're hearing what Bettina just mentioned, which a point I didn't know, that a portion of the fees of the project comes back to the EDC and the IDA. But what comes from their projects? And the FreshDirect project is one project they're trying to give $128 million to relocate a 500,000 square foot warehouse in Long Island City, Queens, to Portmore's Mott Haven section of the Bronx, which is the southernmost tip of the Bronx. It's supposed to be held, or they want to move it onto a plot of land called Harlem Rail Yards, which is actually about 106 acres of land that was leased 99 years ago to one entity from the New York State Department of Transportation. So far, in the last 20 years, they've made $61 million on this land and only paid $5 million in taxes, or actually in rent. They don't pay any real estate taxes. So the IDA and the EDC's master plan of bringing FreshDirect to the Bronx, which supposedly is a food desert, what we do know they're going to bring is thousands of truck trips per day. In their own documentation they submitted to the EDC and the IDA for this funding shows that they're going to have 938 daily truck trips coming through a community that has asthma rates 8 times the national average. 60% of the residents in the South Bronx go to hospitals for asthma-related illnesses. The South Bronx, like I mentioned, is being used currently as a dumping ground for Manhattan, for the more economically affluent, and I think it's wrong. I mean, we have a 5,000 ton per day waste transfer station that's on the same 106 acres of land that FreshDirect wants to put their plant. We also have 2 fossil fuel power plants on that same land. We also have a FedEx hub and the New York Post and Wall Street Journal printing and distribution facility. I mean, it's over the top in terms of how they think the people of South Bronx should be able to be willing to take whatever they dish out and say they're creating jobs, that we have no idea where they're coming from. When they initially planned to give this lease to them, they said they're going to create 5,000 jobs on Hollywood Yard by giving out this lease for 99 years to one entity. They have only created maybe a fraction of that. So, 54 to be exact, and they said 5,000 when they gave them the lease for 99 years. So part of our fight, which I'll talk to you about, is also challenging that lease. So I mentioned about the asthma rates. We know when you have a sick child that has asthma, they have to go to the hospital, they have to go to the doctor routinely, and that causes them to miss school. So if a child is missing school, that means they're also probably missing out on lessons in class, and they're getting a poor standard of education than a healthier child. So what that does is causes a cycle of a lack of education, which causes unskilled labor force, and then you have a cycle of poverty. So then you're creating a low-skilled labor force, which is an $8 an hour job, like what FreshDirect is planning to provide in our community. Now they actively lobby to stay out of living wage legislation. So if they were paying their workers like they advertise, like $12 an hour, which they say they do, but in all of their information they set out for job placements, it says $825 or $875 an hour. Who can live off that in New York City? We average it out as about $91,000 per the 1,000 jobs they said they're going to create over 5 or 10 years. That's like a lot of money to create one job, $91,000 per job. So what we're saying is our community deserves a lot better than that. I mean, they announced this deal 2 days before the very first public hearing. And luckily we found out from Bettina and others that this was going down. We came out and we tried to make sure we found out as much as we could about the project. First they said they only had 238 trucks. We later find out they have 1,000 daily truck trips per day. So this is the kind of way they move these processes along without letting the public know, like you saw in that ad. but we were told by the mayor, the governor, and our borough president this was a done deal 2 days before the first public hearing. So there's no reason to come to the public hearing because it's done already. But we came anyway, and we've been fighting this for the last 13 months. So what I want to do is also talk about the lack of community input. I'm on the community board. There never was a time where this project came before our community board saying we want your input as to what kind of things you need to happen here. What kind of impact, negatively or positive impact will it be on the community? None of that ever happened. Can we move on? So, like I mentioned, FreshDirect stands to receive $127 million in subsidies. But this is how they advertise. They've advertised to our community because they want to move in our neighborhood. So they're saying they want to, bring us cottage, collect cage-free eggs. They'll do it for you. You don't need your local grocer. You don't need your local bodega. You don't need to go to any markets or local brick-and-mortar stores because we'll do all that for you. But this is the kind of marketing they're sending to our community, which is not geared to the South Bronx, which, again, is one of the poorest congressional districts in the country. Our people want to go out and actually touch their vegetables. They don't. Look at this, it's just really, and they spent $2 million advertising to 2 zip codes in the South Bronx, 10454 and 10455. That's where they want to put the plan. So they're saying, yeah, we'll deliver to you for free. They start giving out $100 gift certificates, trying to get people to come out and say and order from them. And then they said, well, we'll even give you we'll even accept EBT on a trial basis. But no one who has EBT wants to pay that kind of money for their food when they don't know exactly what they're going to get. So what will the South Bronx receive, like I mentioned before, is an example of this is the exact document that was sent, but it was inside the information that was submitted to the IDA for funding. There are 938 daily truck trips, and you see it's for a 24-hour period. This is part of the package which they submitted to the IDA, but they didn't really tell us when we went to the only public hearing. They only said it was 238 trucks. We had to get this information through FOIA requests. And then they submitted to us, or they've submitted their application, their truck map and their truck routes and how they would go through the community and how they would be on the highways. And we found this map doesn't even make sense. I mean, when we've traveled their own route map, we have them going down one-way streets in the wrong direction. We have them going by residential housing that has some of the highest rates of asthma in our community, because they're located right by highways. Our community is surrounded by the Major Beacon, the Bruckner Expressway, and the Cross Bronx. And that was the reason for the demise of the Bronx anyway, right? But now they're going to bring in more of that type of traffic and then say they'll deliver to us, right? And they'll deliver these smog-infested trucks to our community. After Sandy, they lost half their fleet. And our FreshDirect has said, and the borough president has told us of the Bronx, that in 5 years, FreshDirect's going to go green. All electric vehicles or natural gas, right? But they lost half their fleet during Sandy. Didn't replace one vehicle with electric or natural gas. They bought 10 out of the money that our borough president gave them as part of the subsidy package. But what they did bring us was their garbage trucks. That is the Harlem River Rail Yard. The green land you see there. This is part of the 106 acres of land. And what they did was, when their trucks were flooded after Sandy, because of they were flooded in Long Island City, they tried to bring and dump the garbage trucks on the land in Harlem River Yard in our neighborhood. And we said, no. We got the press involved, we got on news, and 3 days later they had to tow those very trucks out of the yard that they towed in 3 days earlier. So they spent countless money, funds bringing those trucks there, thinking, well, the community doesn't care. And if you look on the top of those trucks, you see the dark spots on the top of them? That's from the diesel exhaust, which will be in our atmosphere, in our environment. So I think we have justification for saying this is a crazy deal. It doesn't really benefit our community, and it's only something, another disrespect to a community that's been stepped on over and over again. So we asked ourselves, is this environmental racism? Is this environmental injustice? Is this something that, and if you look at everything that we've checked off here, it actually meets all of the criteria for environmental racism. And like I mentioned, what exists on that land right now, the fossil fuel power plants, the 5,000-ton waste transfer station, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal printing and distribution facility, FedEx hub. It's just totally ridiculous. And to mention that the fossil fuel power plants, there's 4 within an 1/8 of a mile radius of that area. But what we've done, and since, maybe back up a little bit, because I'm going a little fast, and I'm sorry, I get really excited about this issue because this is so incredible. I mean, in 2005 and in 1997, we rezoned the area right outside the Harlem River Rail Yard twice. You can move on to the next slide. You can keep going. We moved on, I mean, I'll leave right there for a second. We rezoned the area twice for mixed use, for residential and light commercial, because there's an influx of loft areas, and we made those residential, saying that now that this area has changed, more population has come to the area, we see that there's other things that can be done in this neighborhood other than heavy industrial usages. And this went through not only our community board, but also the city council and city planning commission. But in the environmental impact statement that FreshDirect is using or has submitted to the Industrial Development Agency and EDC for their $127 million,